Hello and welcome to the Handplane Challenge. I'm Mark, your host and self-appointed head researcher of vintage handplanes. Today's video is part 2 in our series on high-angle frog kits for vintage handplanes as manufactured by Reed Planes and sold by woodbywright.com. I originally thought that we were only going to have a 2-part series here, but now I think that was optimistic. So this is part 2 of a 3 or 4-part series on high-angle frog kits for vintage handplanes. Today's video is going to be covering exclusively the 50-degree angle high-angle frog kit in a Stanley Bailey number 4 type 11 as seen in the previous video. Alrighty then, let's get to it. So when I first started using this plane, I noticed right away that something was a little amiss. In order to get a shaving in the middle of the sole, in the middle of the mouth, I had to skew the lateral adjustment lever all the way, pretty far amount to the right. Despite, this seemed odd because I know for a fact that the iron is ground and honed at a very, very close to a 90-degree angle. So that warranted some further investigation, and what I found is there needs to be a little bit of adjustment on this wedge. So we're going to slide it out. So what's going on here is a little bit of a casting defect in the wedge. Now, I think you can see it with this angle pretty clearly. The leg of the wedge, it looks like this. The leg that is at the top of the picture there is significantly thicker than the other two. And I can see that this is a casting error because, in fact, you can actually see a little line. It may not show up in the picture very well. See if we can. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to get it very, very easily. But there's you can see the faint outline of a line here, which was actually the top of the casting. You can see it also on the front. I'll try taking a picture of it, but you can also see that basically there's some brass that was left on top of this wedge, this leg here, compared to the other two. And so that's making the frog sit in there high to one side, which necessitates moving the lateral adjustment lever to get the cutter to be more or less parallel with the sole. So we're going to go ahead and fix that. And I think it's fair to say that the Reed Planes and Wood by Wright have addressed this. You know, this is early production that we're talking about here, so there are undoubtedly always going to be a few bugs that need to be worked out. So we're going to get set up, and we're just going to file this off. I'll give it show it briefly on camera so that you can see what I'm doing. And that way, if you have one of these, have a wedge that looks like mine, you'll basically know what to do. Okay, I've got it mounted in the vise. As you can see, it is, after all, a wedge, and so I've got it pressed between my homemade soft jaws so as not to have it move around on me when I'm trying to file it. So we've got it securely held in place. We're just going to take our file and work on that until we get it back to where it's supposed to be, so that leg matches the one in the middle and on the opposite side. And after all, watching somebody file a piece of brass is certainly a lot like watching paint dry, so we're going to go off camera and finish this. Going to go slow to make sure we don't screw anything up, but it should be a pretty straightforward correction. All right, be back in a flash. Okay, we're back. Here's the wedge. I've finished filing down this leg. Much more even with the other two legs. You can see, maybe you can see the file marks. I lapped it a little bit on a piece of sandpaper on a granite stone just as a final step, and I re-scratched the 50-degree line right here because it was obscured from the filing a little bit. So it's good to go. And frankly, I've already tried it once in the plane, so I know I've got the defect corrected. All right then, so now we're going to try it out and see how it works. Okay, so I think we've resolved all the issues and completed the basic setup of the 50-degree high-angle frog kit in the Stanley No. 4. So I've got a couple of tips that worked for me. One is, I realized that we're not supposed to over-tighten frog screws, but you need to make sure they're reasonably tight in this installation. The reason is the frog, or the kit, is a wedge shaped, and it furthermore has those open-ended slots. So if you encounter a lot of vibration when you're planing, you run into knots, or you just run into weird grain, whatever makes it do this, that vibration, if the frog screws aren't tight, that vibration is going to cause the wedge to vibrate and back out from underneath the frog. So every once in a while, tug on it like this and make sure that it's adequately tight. Second is, I found it useful, the inclination for most people that get a new tool accessory like the high-angle frog kit, the tendency is to jump right in on your most problematic grain. I did the same thing, and so what I decided was better was to first use it with something that you know. And for me, here on the Handplane challenge, let's just plane the standard test board first and make sure that we've got this thing set up correctly. Okay. All right, so got the standard test board set up here. We're ready to go. Taking pretty good thin shavings. Now, one thing I should say is I did not joint this thing ahead of time in the interest of saving time. So it's not perfectly flat probably, but we're doing pretty good. I'm going to set it just a little bit lower, tiny bit. And so, you know, you're going to be aiming for wispy shavings with difficult grain. You're not going to be peeling off slices. That would be too much for any plane, I think. So I think this is about right. And so I think basically this is showing that we've got the setup in about the right place. Okay then, good enough. We think we're done on that part. Okay, so we think we've got the plane set up correctly, and it will take a decent shaving in ordinary wood. Now what I wanted to do was have a test for tear out so that I could compare 45 degrees to 50 degrees to 55 degrees and see, you know, if the tear out gets less as you get to a higher angle frog. I haven't really come up with something that I'm happy with yet. If someone out there knows of a good test that would be applicable in this case, I would be delighted to hear about it. So please, if so, leave a comment and let me know about it. So instead, while we're developing this test, and you know, we don't want to wait. You know, it may take, who knows how long it'll take. We want to move along, and so what I thought we would do today instead was just take a quick tour through some of the figured woods that I've been testing these planes on so far. And so, without further ado, let's take a look. So, wood number one. Quarter sawn sycamore. That may seem like an odd choice. However, it turns out that I've got a lot of it, so that's why it's in the list. So we're planing. Now, one thing to bear in mind here on any high angle frog situation, you want to keep the plane. You want to keep the plane pointing forward. Normally, when I'm planing, especially with a smoother plane, I like to skew it. But skewing is bad in this case because all it does is reduce the angle, which negates the impact of the high angle frog. So try to keep it pointing straight. We're looking good. Seems to be cutting. Quarter sawn sycamore pretty good. There's a big old knot right there. Doesn't seem to be hurting anything, and I'm not seeing any tear out. So far so good. Not doing pretty good. There I did. I skewed it already. It's a hard habit to break. Okay. Quarter sawn sycamore seems fine. Next up, Bradford pear. Now this pear, if you've had any experience with pear, you know that it's a beautiful wood. It's got these ray things going through it, and it is an absolute bear to plane without tear out. These ray things are like this, and it's always been a problem for me. So here we go. Let's see if we've got a longer piece of wood here, so point up a little bit. Oh, that's working fine. Now, another thing I'm not real happy with is it's actually sometimes a little hard to see tear out, so I probably need to get better at that also. But this certainly seems to be making actually pretty magnificent, really. Okay, that's a cursory glance, but that's so far passing with pretty high colors, pretty high grades, I would say. Okay, so that's pear. That's definitely a problematic wood to plane. And then lastly, what we have is a really gnarly piece of walnut. Got a big knot there, got this feathering stuff, you know, this sort of crotchwood figure going up here. That's another case that's always been, you know, it's just a difficult grain pattern to deal with. So let's see how it does. And let's check the camera angle. Yeah, it looks all right. Okay. No skewing. Just say to yourself, do not skew. Do not skew. We're doing very nicely there. And indeed, it's pretty easy. Now, the one advantage of walnut is it is, in fact, pretty easy to, it's much easier to see tear out. So, yeah. You can see nice wispy shavings and nice smooth surface with, as far as I can tell, pretty much zero tear out. Let's back up a little bit here, back farther. Of course, this is a little easier back here. Not bad, not bad at all. That was fun. We've done some quick test planing on quarter sawn sycamore, Bradford pear, and crotch grain walnut. 3 challenging woods to plane, and so far the preliminary results look pretty good. So far so good. And it's not final yet. I still want to get a better comparison between the different high angle frogs, so stay tuned for that. Hopefully we'll be able to develop something before we get too old. But for now, I'm reasonably satisfied with the way things are going. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, please subscribe. By all means, leave comments. Hit the like button. And we'll see you next time on the Handplane Challenge.